Hi everyone, this is the storyteller AnaSayer, and today I'm going to be sharing with you a fanfiction story about Disney's Raya and the Last Dragon. The story is an original idea of mine, but the characters are all Disney's. So let's get started. The story is going to take place 5 years after the end of the movie. And the movie left a lot of questions, like what was the deal with the statues? Who are the Droon? Like, what are they? How did they get there? The fact that there are 2 single parents, and also Raya never had a love interest in there, or even a potential one. And even though I know it's kind of a trend right now of independent, strong women, and they don't need a man in their life, but every strong, independent woman kind of needs a man to make her laugh. So that's what we're going with. So, in the beginning, Chief Benja, Raya's father, announces that he and Chief Verana is going to get married. And Raya doesn't take this news very well, partially because her mom died in childbirth, and so she never really knew her mom. And she could only imagine her dad loving one woman, and the fact that now he's marrying someone from a completely different clan didn't mesh well with her. And so she lets him know and then goes to talk to Sisu about it. Well, Sisu's first words are, "You look like you just tried to swallow jackfruit jerky." And Raya lets her know that she would have preferred that over the news that she just got. And so Raya tells Sisu what had been going on about this news that she just found out. And Sisu basically tells her, "Do you know what you need? A vacation. Let's go visit all of our, go visit the gang again." So Raya agrees, and they decide to meet up the next morning. Next morning comes, Raya sees Sisu, and Sisu is in a really bad mood. The reason being, when Raya asks, is because there is a very crazy, very hyper red dragon basically bouncing around everywhere. Turns out he is like her cousin or some sort of distant relative, and basically her older brother told her that she needed to bring him along on this trip, and his name is Subaru. Well, Subaru notices Raya, and he comes bounding up and starts talking like a little fangirl. "Oh my gosh, you're Raya? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's you. I thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm such a huge fan of you. You're amazing. And I need to breathe." Something to that effect. And Raya is just like, "Oh, hi, nice to meet you, crazy dragon." And Subaru's like, "Oh, okay." And she tries to shake his hand, and he transforms into a human. And Raya just kind of looks like, what in the, like, how was he able to do that? Because it's not a very common thing for dragons to be able to transform into human. She gets a brief explanation that he's a half fire, half water dragon, and he can mimic other people's abilities. But that's all that she gets. She doesn't get a background or anything. He just, okay, he's there for the ride. Sisu kind of assumes that they're gonna fly to go see everyone, but Raya brought Tuk Tuk along. And so they all end up transforming, well, the dragons transform into humans and are able to ride Tuk Tuk to the next little kingdom of Spine. And so, when they get there, they are greeted by Tong and his wife and sat down to a wonderful meal that they all enjoy and are talking. And then all of a sudden, a cute little girl comes running in and is swept up into Tong's arms, and he calls her his little snowflake. Well, after that, the little girl asks who they were, and so he starts telling her the story about how they all saved everyone. And so as soon as the talk dies down, the little girl fell asleep, and So Tong's wife guides them to a bedroom. Well, they were only expecting 2 people. They were not expecting 3. So there's only one bed, very small bed, and 3 of them to share the room. And let's just say it ended up being with Raya stuck in the middle between Sisu and Subaru, and she got no sleep as the 2 of them pushed and tried to get more space on the bed, and yeah, it was a sleepless night. Anyway, the next morning they leave to go to Talon. Upon arriving, they are ambushed by a bunch of Ongis. By a bunch, I mean 3. And they are blindfolded and taken to a place that they have no idea what's going on. And turns out when the blindfolds are taken off, they see a 7-year-old sassy little girl who turns out to be Noi. And they get talking, and Noi's mom kind of reprimands her for treating their guests like that. And Noi basically says, "You never let me to do anything fun anymore. My friend, I was on my own at 2 years old." It kind of hits a sore spot for Mom because that wasn't exactly something she wanted to happen. But Raya decides to try and make peace with them and says, even though we don't expect hard things to happen, nor we don't plan for them, we should still be prepared. So would you be okay if I took Noi and gave her some sword fighting lessons? The mom agrees, reluctantly, but she can see the logic in it. So they go out into the woods, and Raya starts training Noi. Well, we have Subaru in the background laughing at Raya as she is trying to teach a 7-year-old how to do adult moves. And he finally breaks up the party, and Raya asks him, "Well, do you think you can do better?" And he's like, "Oh, I can definitely do better." And so she's a little irked by this, and so she tells him, "Well, if you think you can do better, beat me in a fight." And so the 2 of them find some sticks and they start fighting. Well, good way through the fight, it looks like Raya's gonna win. She cornered Subaru into the ground with nowhere to go, and all of a sudden, in one fluid motion, she is now about to fall into a stream with a stick to her throat, and Subaru is holding onto her hand so she doesn't fall. Well, that kind of answered that question of who the better swordsman was. Raya is still confused. She asks Subaru, "How did you do that?" And in a little bit of a sad voice, he explains that his older brother had taught him. But that's all he really says. He doesn't explain much more. So Raya doesn't push because of his reaction. So since he won, he gets to teach Noi, which he ends up doing a much better job because he knows how to teach at a kid's level. And they have fun. Raya comes in and helps out every once in a while. The only one that doesn't seem to really enjoy this is Sisu, who kind of just is sulking by the end of all this. But they all go back to the house, they have dinner, and once again, because there was no plan for 3 of them, they are all stuck in one room once again, and this time Raya volunteers to sleep on the floor. I don't blame her one bit. However, she still gets no sleep because the 2 of them are still fighting on the bed, Sisu and Subaru, and Sisu tries to push him off all night so she could have the bed to herself, and Subaru is trying to stay on the bed. But neither end up winning in the end. So that means the next morning is a very, very long morning, and all of them are tired, and the doesn't help that Tuk Tuk ends up getting sick. Poor cute little guy. And so Noi's mom volunteers to look after him until they come back that way, which is a huge help to them. But that means now they get to fly, and as they are flying, the atmosphere is extremely awkward. And finally, Raya is sick of the awkwardness, and she asks about Subaru's past. Turns out his mom was a water dragon, his father was a fire dragon, and so it allows him the ability to have those copying abilities, and he was the youngest in his family. Well, Raya realizes she knows nothing about Sisu's parents, so she asks Sisu, what were your parents like? And Sisu informs her that they died when she was young in a fire started by a fire dragon. That makes the tension even stronger. And so they kind of just ride in silence, but thankfully Tail is right there. And so they land and they find Bones home, and they get there and they notice he's not there. Well, they hear from his parents and his sister that he just tends to disappear and is brought back, comes back home with bruises and keeps getting into fights and does all this other stuff. Just keeps happening, and he just seems to always be in trouble whenever they turn around. And so Raya decides or announces that they'll go find him and take care of it, or like bring him back home. And they so Sisu and Subaru also volunteer to look for him, even though Subaru doesn't actually know what he looks like. So that's gonna be fun. But eventually Raya does find him, and once again he's about to get beat up in an alleyway by 3 big, strong guys. And by now Bone's like a 16-year-old, something like that, somewhere in there. So he's vastly outnumbered. And thankfully, the guys recognize Raya and are terrified of her because of all the rumors of what had been going on. And so they run off, and Raya basically smacks Bone upside the head, asking him what he thinks he's doing, getting into trouble all the time and causing his parents to worry. He finally opens up to Raya that it's because since Tail hasn't really had a leader in so long, that the rich had basically been taking over everything and been stealing from the poor, trying to get richer, and just making life miserable for everyone. And he was just trying to make things better by taking from them and playing Robin Hood, basically. And Raya tells him that's basically noble of you, but probably not the best way to actually make permanent change. So she convinces him to tell his parents so that he can get help from them. And he does tell his parents, they apologize, he apologizes, there's a few tears, and they all decide that something needs to be done to stop this. So they go out and gather as many people as would be willing to fight, and the next morning they have a huge crowd of people protesting against the rich people. Like, obviously it's not all the rich people there, but to the ones that are abusing the power that they have. And so basically they come out and basically mock this little crowd, saying we have all of our we have the police force, we have the army, we can basically pay anyone to do what we want, so you guys are basically doomed. Well, Raya informs them that they need a leader and that she will support Bone as their leader. They basically laugh at her, saying, why would you want a little troublemaker to be the leader of Tail? And she tells them he's not just a troublemaker. He cares enough about these people to have been going off his way, getting beat up. He fought for the people to give them the things that they needed to survive. And so she basically turns the question on them. Would you rather somebody that will stand by and let other people be walked all over? Or would you rather have a leader that will fight for you if the time ever came? Well, they still are kind of like, well, it's no big deal, like, basically. And she says, well, I will tell you right now, Heart will support him, and we will fight for him. Sisu and Subaru announce that the dragons will fight for him. So basically, they now are going to be extremely, extremely outnumbered if they try and go against Bone being their leader. And even though they're not very smart about the things that they do, they're smart enough to know that they will end up dead if they try and fight this. So Bone gets crowned as the new leader of Tail. And they have a huge celebration, and everyone is excited and happy. And this gave an opportunity for Raya and Subaru to get to know each other a bit better. And they talk, they laugh, and there's little Sisu standing in the background sulking. And finally, she gets fed up of watching the whole situation and storms out. Well, Raya isn't completely oblivious to her friend, and so she and Subaru follow her out. As they're following her out, Raya is calling to her, and finally Sisu stops. And basically tells her that go back and hang out with your new friend because you don't need me anymore because you have a new dragon friend. And Raya tells her, I'm not replacing you. You're my friend. How could I ever replace you? And Sisu basically just mutters, well, it doesn't look like it. And so Raya blows up and starts getting mad. Sisu's mad. And Subaru yells out, enough! Enough. And the Sisu and Raya look at him, and he is crying. And they've never seen this cheerful guy so distraught like that before. And so they ask him, what's wrong? Like, what is going on? This isn't like you. And he explains that when he was, or years and years ago, he doesn't know how long because of everything that had happened, but he had gone to find his older brother once and had found out that his brother was using dark magic, and he had used that dark magic on a human to turn him to stone. And basically his brother had this power of controlling people's light, and so he basically took the light out of this person, and that turned the person to stone. And when Subaru told his brother that this wasn't right, that they can't do that to people, that people are equal to them, not that dragons are superior, his brother exploded and said, well, if you're not going to stand with me, you're against me. And he started performing a curse. And that curse created the Drunes. Well, to stop this, Subaru had to do a magic spell of his own, which took everything out of him except his life force, which meant that his body dissolved into the water. And so the water, so he was able to stop the Drune, but as he was disappearing into, or diminishing into the water, his brother yelled out, I will be back. Anytime there is discord, these Drune will be able to come back. And he was right. Every time there was discord, the Drune came back. That's when the dragons turned to stone and the people started turning to stone. And Sisu and Raya just stood there astonished. They told him, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened to you. And Sisu and Raya made up. And Subaru looks at them and was like, I wish my brother Oberon was more like you two. And Raya froze. She's like, did you say Oberon? And she's like, we need to get back to Heart now. So they all fly back to Heart, and she explains that a mysterious guy had shown up 5 years ago that had said his name was Oberon. And she asks if his brother had the ability to turn into human too. And it's like, well, kind of. It's more of an illusion. He's not actually transformed into somebody. He just takes on the image of them, and he can use light bouncing off of water to change his voice as well. And Raya's like, that your brother is here. He came back 5 years ago. And so they arrive, and because of his ability to change into people, Raya informs them that she's the only one that's going to go in. And Sisu points out, well, how do we know when you get back that it's actually you? So Raya looks at her and says, I'll tell you, here's a gift. And so with that, Raya goes in, and she sees Chief Verona and Chief Benja and tells them they need to get out. Well, the only other person there is Namari. So Raya yells out, Namari! And she knows right away that that is not Namari. It is actually Oron in disguise. And so she gets Chief Benja and Chief Verona out of there. Chief Benja tries to come back after he gets his fiancée out, but they all tell him that they need to have faith that Raya can handle this herself. Because, yeah, with somebody that can appear like other people, they need only one person in there. They can only have one person in there. And so a fight ensues between Raya and Oron. And Oron basically is teasing her, saying, all right, who spilled the beans? I'm impressed that you figured it out so quickly. And Raya is just like, I am going to beat you. Where is Namari? And he's like, don't worry, she's locked up somewhere. You will not find her. And that is it for Raya. And so the two of them start fighting, and eventually she gets into a position where she's on her back and Oron is about to attack. And that's when she remembered the trick that Subaru had done on her. And so she does this move that allows her to get onto his back, and she stabs right into the back of his head, and he crumbles into, he turns to stone and then just crumbles. And all that is left behind is a black stone. Well, that black stone, Raya grabs it, and she heads out to her friends and family. And everyone comes running up to hug her and everything else. And Sisu's like, wait! Are you really Raya? And Raya just smiles and says, yes, Sisu, here is a gift. And she gives her the black stone. And then everybody hugs and says congratulations and everything else, and they succeed. And then a few weeks later, they do find Namari. She was locked up in Fang. So she was safe, she wasn't hurt or anything. She was just a little annoyed that she was stuck there and missed all the fun. And so the wedding day comes, and Chief Benja asks if Raya is really okay with this. Is she really okay with him getting married? She says, Father, the thing I have learned is that when you learn to love somebody, it doesn't mean that you're replacing somebody else. It just means your love is growing stronger. And so the wedding happens. Chief Verona arrives in a gorgeous dress, and they live happily ever after for now. Because who knows? There could be another adventure ahead of them. And that is my story. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Special thanks to Becca Malott for this amazing makeup. My best friend made this. She prefers to remain anonymous. And thank you so much, Julia, for editing this video. I will inform you that there is going to be another video of Raya and the Last Dragon, but this one is going to have artwork done by Travis Malott. So look forward to it. Subscribe so that you can find out when it comes out, because I can guarantee you will want to see that artwork. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!